You are listening to the Serra High School Podcast, your connection to the scholars, the athletes, the men of faith, the men of humility, the Serra Padres. Hello, and welcome to the Serra High School Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting our Dean of Students, Ray Baldonado. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, I've fortunately been able, not only as a friend, but also I was able to interview you when you first started, and we had a lovely article that we wrote about you here with your cute little son, Andre. So I really have been excited to have this conversation with you because I think everybody else wants to hear just the whole story behind Mr. Baldonado, where you were a student here. You graduated in 2007. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your time at Serra as a Padre?
My time at Serra was obviously amazing, and that's, most of the reason, if not all the reason, I wanted to come back and work here in any aspect. My time at Serra really molded me into the person that I am today. And it's the reason I want to work here is because Serra did so much for me and my family, and raised me in an aspect, and now I want to be able to give back to the students now and moving forward and on and on and on. And, like you said, my son, Andre, I think he'll be class of 2036. So
that is so great.
Plan on being here for a while.
Excellent, excellent. So you were a student at St. Greg's before you came to Serra. And what made you want to come to Serra when you were a young eighth grader?
Well, actually, what made me want to come to Serra was my mom. She, I guess you could say, obviously, had a huge impact on my life. She's a single mom. And so what she said, that's kind of what happens. And she said, you're going to Serra, and, a lot of my buddies, weren't necessarily coming to Serra, but she said, that's where you're going, and that's the way it's going to be. And I was, it wasn't really that I was for it or against it. That's kind of the way it is.
I love
there's
it.
Not much of an argument when mom says something, that's what you do. I
truly respect your mom, and I hope all boys are listening and that they are the same. But no, that's awesome. So you got here to Serra, and what was your first impression, and how did your 3 following years, change you or shape you?
It was amazing. It's such a different feel. It's obviously it's a long time ago now, but I definitely remember, coming from 8th grade where you're, a big fish in a small pond, and you think, every 8th grader runs the world. And, then you come to Serra and there's, 800-900 students, and, now you're one of the smaller fish, and you have to find your way. And, obviously what helped me was, first day you're playing football, and, I get to meet the 100 guys that are trying out for freshman football. And, you automatically just, it's not that friendships are created, they're forged, and the relationships are forged, for lifelong, like I always, when I coached, I always tell the guys the first day of freshman tryouts, take a look at the guys around you. Like, you don't know it yet, but you just looked at the best man in your wedding.
That's amazing.
And so that's my experience, and it's amazing because, I went through 4 years. I played 3 sports, and it just, I was always busy. There was never any downtime, and that was such a great thing, because not that I was worried about getting in trouble or anything, but I was always just focused on, the task at hand and, what was happening the next day or that day. And it was always something new, and it was just an amazing experience.
That's amazing. And so you said you played football, I think you wrestled, and you did shot put, right?
Yep, that's correct.
And how do you think, so I'm going to get to graduation and how you returned to Serra, but how do you think, the relationships with your coaches, your teachers, counselors, how do you think that kind of helped you in your future? Well,
it didn't help me, it made me. That's what kind of gave me everything. The relationships you build here they're special. They're second to none. It's, Serra will go above and beyond. At least that was my experience when I was here. It's whether it's a counselor or a teacher, and obviously, the coaches. Like, you can talk to your coaches about anything, and you always feel like this is home, and you always have someone to talk to, no matter what you're going through. High school isn't easy for anyone. It wasn't easy for me. Just whether it's things going on at home or, family matters or schoolwork, and Serra does such a great job, at least for me, of, making you feel welcome and supported. And, and like I said, that's just part of the reason why I want to give back.
That's amazing. And so you went, after graduation, you went and pursued your degree. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about those years and when you returned and in what capacity?
Yeah, so my dream was obviously to keep playing football after high school. I went up to CSM to play football. I ended up blowing out my shoulder. I had 4 shoulder surgeries, so that kind of, put an abrupt end to that, we'll say. And when I was at CSM, I was like, man, I want to do something, and I love football, but more so, I miss Sarah, and the camaraderie and the brotherhood, and when you're an athlete your whole life or something, you just I miss the competitiveness,
Sure.
And so I called Dean Ayub, who was our athletic director at the time, and I said, hey, Coach, is there anything I can do to come help out, whether it's I'll be a water boy for all I care, and he goes, well, I think we have a position open on the freshman staff, so
Good timing.
Great timing, right? And so he put me in contact with Coach Walsh, obviously who I played for, and he said, hey, let's come, I'll interview you, we'll see if we can make this work. And sure enough, at 18 years old, I was hired as a freshman football coach, and kind of never looked back, so to speak.
That's awesome. And so then you coached for how many years consecutively after that?
I coached football for 12 years consecutively after that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So
and mixed in there, I did 2 years of wrestling and 5 years of coaching lacrosse as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so at that time you became a football coach. Did you also come on the staff in another capacity at Serra?
Not quite at that point. I believe it was the next year I started, doing like some substitution of classes and, helping out in the library, kind of, getting my foot in the door, so to speak. Just, I was still in college, and, as every college student knows, you have some downtime,
Yes.
And so I was able to, kind of give back and help out a little bit. And, like I said, it kept me busy. So it was great. And that's where I started. And then, I've held a lot of different positions on my way to obviously becoming the dean.
Great. And so now as Dean of Men, how do you think that, well, first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about your duties and kind of your day-to-day?
Well, where do I start?
Probably never a different day, actually.
I was actually just having that conversation with Doug yesterday. The beauty of our job is, no day is the same and no situation's the same. It's, I could wake up with, 0 emails in my inbox and not, oh, today's going to be smooth and it's going to be a fun day and, there's nothing going on and, it takes a curve and you never know what's going to happen. So it's an eye-opening experience. I don't want to say I wasn't ready for it, but because I knew that was the case, but it's definitely different than anything I've ever experienced. So to answer that question, I mean, day to day is, I care about the kids, I care about the staff, I care about the faculty. I want to obviously do what we can to not only keep our kids safe, but help support them in any way that I can. And unfortunately, some days that means there is some discipline involved.
Sure.
And obviously, that's something we deal with in our office. And like I told you before, I don't want to make discipline. I don't want to. I don't know if it's the right word, but I don't want to come down on these kids too hard.
Sure.
I want them to, because then I don't think they're going to learn from it. My goal is, yes, sometimes you're going to have to be disciplined, but I want them to be able to learn and grow and understand what we're trying to do here. Because if they don't understand it, then what was the point? You can have detention, you sit in the room for an hour, but are you really learning from that? And so that's kind of our philosophy, and I told you before, discipline isn't something that happens to you. We want it to be something that happens for you. That way you're able to learn from it and prosper.
That's amazing. And I remember you said that, and I've always hung on that quote because I think it shows such just a respect for the students and for the transformational growth that happens here, and being, held accountable is actually, and I mean, I think everybody can agree, being held accountable is what makes us all, better always, right? I mean, just making sure that we stay in line.
Yeah, personal accountability is huge, and that's, and it goes a long way. It's not just coming from my office, whether it's me or Doug or Mary Beth or anybody, we try to take it, all the way to make sure we're understood and clear, and shout out to our parents that we call, we work in partnership with our parents. It's not, us versus them versus the student. We call them, we say, hey, this is an informative call. Your son's not in trouble, but, we did talk to him about this. We'd appreciate it, if you were able to, speak with him. And, and those conversations go a long way, and if we have to make a few of them a day, so be it.
Absolutely. Well, I think many parents love the fact that Serra is an extension of the home, right? Not just from the community aspects and all the positive things, but also, keeping an eye on the behavior and impulse control and manners, and I mean, there's a lot that goes into it that I think that the community here at Serra does expect from its students. And I wanted to just ask you how, if you could kind of compare the discipline that you received as a student and kind of what's implemented today. Are there any differences, or is it pretty traditional?
Well, I can't answer that question because I was never disciplined
Of
as a
course,
student.
you were never in trouble, I'm sure. I meant for not wearing a collared shirt. That's probably about it.
I always wore my collared shirt.
Okay. Was that the dress code back then, though? Right?
Yeah. The dress code was pretty similar back then. Obviously, we made tweaks along the way. When I was in school, it was you had to wear a collared shirt every day. And then I remember one time, on Fridays, we were allowed to wear a Serra-themed T-shirt. And then while I was in high school, the rule kind of became, okay, you can wear Serra-themed T-shirts every day. So we were in heaven with that.
I'll bet.
Yeah. You don't have to wear a collared shirt. Oh, I need to stock up on Serra T-shirts. It was probably a great promotion for the school.
I was going to say a win for the marketing team, too.
Exactly, yeah.
That's great. Wonderful. So, and just overall, though, I mean, was it stricter when you were a student, or do you try to keep the same, firm, grasp on the behavior?
That's tough. I'm not really sure. Like I said, I never gotten in any serious trouble, so I can't really tell you, how strict or unstrict it was. But I will say, when I was in high school, the dean was Mr. Ferretti, and he laid down the law. Shout out to him.
That's great.
I'm still in contact with him. We actually just talked yesterday. So yeah, we'll say he was stricter than I was.
I love it. That's great. And so you took over for Mr. Peralta, and so because you kind of worked your way up. When did you start with the dean team?
Oh man, maybe 2000. I don't know. It was a while ago. Maybe 5 years ago. We'll say. Yeah.
So you had a great person to look up to and learn from, and you kind of have employed the same wonderful values. Yeah, that's great.
Ken kind of laid the blueprint, and he got it started, and he did a phenomenal job in our dean's office. And obviously we were sad to see him go, and he's just right down the hall teaching theology. So
fortunately, yes.
Obviously I still talk with him, and obviously we're like family.
Sure.
That's like I said, the bonds are forged here, and I mean that in the best way possible. Ken's an amazing guy and did a phenomenal job, and he just wanted to go back and teach. So, good for him. And obviously he opened the door for me. So I can't be, thankful enough as to everything he showed me and taught me and still helps me with.
That's awesome. And when he's seen right back on the field where you were, so you guys kind of traded places a little bit. And I wanted to talk about your time on the field because you were Mr. Baldonado, obviously, to all the students, but a lot of people refer to you as Coach Huggy. And I call you Huggy, and all your friends call you Huggy. And I wanted to kind of ask you how that got started, and just tell us the relevance.
So it's a pretty funny story. So I've had that name since the first week of my freshman year in high school. We were playing football. We were out here at practice on the field, and I was kind of rotating in with a group of guys on the offensive line, and Coach Nuila was one of our coaches, and he kind of looks back and says, "Huggy Bear, get in next play." So I'm standing there with the two other guys, and we're like, "Who's he talking to?" Like,
Me, him.
We had no idea. And then so the next play goes off. He goes, "Huggy Bear, I told you to get in." And we're like, we don't know who he's talking to. That's kind of weird. Well, someone better go in before he gets really mad. Nobody goes in. So he comes over the next play. I think he grabbed me by the face and goes, "When I tell you to get in, you get in there." And we're like, "Oh, yep, sorry, coach."
Guess you meant me.
Yep, didn't know you were talking to me. I get in there, and so after practice, I go up to him. I go, "Hey, coach, I apologize for the miscommunication. I'm thinking like he thinks I don't listen. I got to clear the air."
Sure.
I go, "I apologize. I think you may have had my name incorrect. I'm not sure what you called me, but my name's Ray Baldonado." And he goes, "No, it's not. Your name is Huggy Bear." And I go, "Okay." And he goes, "Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." He goes, "Well, it's a character from Starsky and Hutch." He goes, "You should watch it was it was a show back then, and before my time. Obviously, I had never seen it or heard of it or anything." And so the name kind of stuck, because that's what the coaches started calling me. And then obviously my peers started calling me that because, like I said, that's 100 new people that we've never met before. And so they kind of, that picked up. And, then before you know it, everyone was calling me that. And then in 2005, my junior year, the San Francisco Chronicle did like a top 5, like in 05 was like the theme of it. And they did special categories, throughout the Bay Area, and they did like nicknames. and Huggy Bear got voted the #1 nickname in the Bay Area.
Oh, you're kidding. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So it runs deep, and now everyone my mom calls me, and it's just, everyone calls me Huggy.
I love it. Well, I just remember when my son started playing as a freshman, and I wasn't here long enough, I hadn't been here yet, and it was Coach Huggy, and I was like, Coach Huggy, so
you're getting coached by someone named Huggy?
Exactly. No, I love it. So it's wonderful, and everyone knows Huggy now, so it's great. Wonderful. So you have a little boy. He's 5?
4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 years old. And where does he go to school? Is he local?
Yeah, he goes to preschool. He goes to Hope Lutheran. It's right down the street, about a mile away, and
awesome.
He loves it.
Future Padre?
I sure hope so, assuming he can get in.
Awesome. That's great. Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate your time here today. It's been so great to chat with you and to hear more about just your discipline, your job. We're so lucky to have you here. The boys love you, and you're keeping everyone safe here at campus, so we appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
All right.
If we ever need to do round 2, you know where to find me.
Oh, I have a feeling you'll be back.
Sounds good to me.
Go Padres.
Go Padres.